Okay, welcome, Laura. We are glad to see you. I
Thank
just
you.
introduced you. Everybody, this is Dr. Laura Yost. So we are now going to get started, and I will pull up your PowerPoint.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your patience. The camera wasn't working, and thanks to wonderful tech support here at Kirkwood, it now is. So good morning, everyone. I'm going to be talking about unleashing everyone's potential using AI for accessibility. And we can go to the next slide. And we will start this morning with a poll. So our poll is really trying to get at what is the motivation behind looking at AI tools in the context of accessibility for our students. And the poll is going to ask you what percentage of students do not disclose their disabilities to their academic institution.
So the poll should have been released, right? You guys can see that? Laura, I don't know if you can see the results, but it says 30% of people do not disclose their disability, 67% do disclose, 50% also do not disclose.
Okay, well, the actual answer is, we can go to the next slide. The majority of students who have disabilities actually do not disclose that to their institutions. So this clearly speaks of the need to have alternative approaches to assisting students that go beyond the formal channels because we don't know that they need that formal support. Next slide. So today what we are going to focus on is what AI can offer to really bridge that gap and to provide the needed support for our students. Next slide. Okay, so AI is a wonderful start. It really is quite beneficial because it can provide real-time accommodations regardless of the instructional format. In addition, and this is what we will focus on today, there are numerous tools out there that are free, and they do provide very robust functionality for our students. The only caveat is that students might need to create an account in order to be able to access that support. And then the final point here is it's really exciting, but the technology options really address a broad range of student needs. And oftentimes the tools that we'll highlight this morning actually apply to numerous situations. So neurodiverse students, ADHD students, etc. So we have this really nice pool that we can draw on to help as many students as possible. Having said that, AI obviously is not a perfect solution. Clearly, the tools we will talk about today do not replace disability support specialists or dedicated software, and that's just something to keep in mind. Further, a lot of these tools may require some evaluation on your part to make sure that what they do actually fits the needs of your students and what you would like it to do. And it's also not an excuse for being reactive to the situation, saying, well, these tools are out there, so I really don't need to be proactive and do what I can to help students up front or when I'm actually designing my course. And it obviously should not be used to replace content remediation or universal design for learning development. We should be including or infusing those components regardless, but it's nice to know that we have these tools to help us out and help our students if we need to. So what are we going to talk about today? I've broken down the information based upon the approach of the technology, and that is also something that you'll see reflected in your handouts. What I included in the chat are two updated links for content, and the first one is a spreadsheet that breaks down the AI based upon what we see here. So we will first be looking at browser settings, both in Chrome and Edge that already exist, that we can simply turn on by going to Settings. The second thing we're going to focus on are browser extensions. And in terms of duplication, most of the extensions that we see are available in Chrome, which is where I will focus, but also in Edge as well. We will also be looking at AI-enhanced platforms that really can assist students. One example would be Recap, but we'll look at a few others, including Napkin. And then finally, we'll conclude with Gemini, Claude, and Copilot, probably what you're already very familiar with, these generative AI tools that can be used to help students. And then I do not discuss this a lot, but there are mobile apps as well, particularly for Android. That's the phone that I use. And we'll see, for instance, with ChatGPT, when you use that on your mobile device, you can actually speak to it and it will speak back. So that would be another assist for some of our students. But again, we don't emphasize that very much. So if you go to the first link, you'll get the beautiful spreadsheet that focuses on all these. And then the second link that I provided is documentation to help with the support of those tools. But before I begin, I thought we could break it up a little bit more. And I wanted to throw it out there and see if there's actually an AI platform or tool that you really like that you think is very beneficial for supporting students with disabilities. Does anyone have a tool that they would like to share? Well, yeah, ChatGPT for image descriptions. I think that's fantastic. And that is a wonderful use of generative AI. Gemini is also very good with that because it has excellent computer vision. And that's exactly what we need to see. So if you ever have any questions about what you would like to include as alt text, simply upload your image and ask the generative AI in 1 to 2 sentences, how would you best describe this for alt text? And Glean is one I'm not familiar with, so that's something I'll follow up with when we're done. But thank you very much. And what we'll try to do is sort of broaden our awareness of other tools this morning. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with in-browser settings, focusing on Chrome and Edge in particular. If we look at Google Chrome, there are 3 dots that you'll see up at the top right-hand corner. If you click on that, that'll take you to settings. Then you go down to settings again. And then when you're in that second settings, what we will focus on is accessibility. Once you're in accessibility, there are a handful of options that I think are the most valuable for our students. The first one is live caption, and this one is extremely powerful and robust in the sense that most AI tools currently, if they're going to be reading videos, are actually reading the closed captions or the transcripts that already exist in conjunction with that video. Live caption is unique because this AI tool does not need to rely on closed captions or on a transcript in order to generate real-time captioning. And this is something that actually is the first default tool that you can turn on in accessibility, and I think it's fantastic. The next one is live translate, and if you turn this on, what that means is the live captions will automatically be translated into the language that you select. The third piece is quick highlight. This one isn't exactly as robust as the others, but what it's supposed to do is outline visually the interactive components on a web page. So if a user is sort of scrolling through the page and it comes to an area where you can click or you can fill in a box, it's supposed to highlight that. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's certainly something to explore. And then the last one is navigate with cursor. And when you toggle this on, what that means is an individual can use the arrows on their keyboard to navigate through a page. And again, these are default in all Chrome browsers once you access them through the accessibility feature under settings. Next slide. So this is our screen here. If we click through this, you'll see that the 3 dots are the 3 vertical dots in the upper right-hand corner. If you click on that, that menu will appear that you see, and you'll click on settings again at the bottom. And then this is the primary settings window where you can see live captions being highlighted. The default is off, but since I screen captured this from my computer, I had defaulted to on. The next one we will see, as I said, that live translate that will translate in real time the captions generated by live caption. And then the last one that we'll return to here, if you click on this bottom link, it will take you directly to the Chrome Web Store, and it will have on that page all of the pieces that it has collected related to accessibility. So if we go to the next slide, the screen capture here shows you live captions in action. I have tested this with commercials. I've tested this with musicals, which is what you see here. It's a clip from Swing Time with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and it actually does a very good job with that complicated presentation. So unlike very straightforward discussions like we're having now, if you have a song or a commercial, it does quite well with that. And again, this is in real time. Can't save it or anything, but it really does a good job. I have a video from decades ago that was on VHS, even before closed captioning was possible with that technology. And I used live captions with that, and that then made it accessible for our students. So I think that this is a fantastic tool to use. And again, any student or any user can access this through their Chrome browser. Next, advance. Again, most AI does still need a transcript or closed captions. So when a video says, or rather AI says it can read a video, it's reading that information already. It is important to note that live captions, at least at this point, is the exception to the rule, that it doesn't need those pieces. So anything you have should be able to be accessible. Another piece, in case you're interested, that I really like is Glasp AI. This is another extension for the browser. And what it does is it produces, again, it needs to have closed captions or a transcript, but what it produces is in one click, a full, complete, time-stamped transcript of the information. This is fantastic because students then can reference particular points if they're having some difficulty with a concept or something isn't clear. Then they can let the instructors know at minute 5 or at minute 8, I'm having issues, but it appears all at once with just one click. If a student or a user is already tied into ChatGPT, this transcript can be exported to ChatGPT. You can certainly copy it or highlight it, translate it, but this is a wonderful addition to any, I guess, classroom really. So that is Glasp AI, and that's an extension that you can get in Chrome, and I think it's fantastic. It does a very good job in breaking up that content consistently with the timestamps as opposed to sort of every 5 or 10 minutes, which could happen with some. Yeah, next slide. When we look at Microsoft Edge, we will see it also has 3 dots, except instead of being horizontal, it's vertical. It's the same thing. If you click on that, go to settings, then accessibility. And these are the built-in features of the Edge browser. First one is a visibility outline. Again, it does the same thing that we saw before with highlight, that if there is an interactive piece embedded in the HTML, it should highlight that for the user so that they know they can type something in or click on something to go to another location. Page zoom is fantastic because it can magnify a page up to 500%. There are some iterations in there, so it can be 50, 75, 100, 200, but a maximum is 500%. So that's wonderful because you don't need to have an extension to magnify the content for you. And then adjust captions allows you to adjust the appearance of your captions. You can change the style, you can change the color, you can change its opacity. And so if you really want a situation in which the captions have a little bit more contrast than standard, you can adjust that there, and that will be pretty consistent. And then this just shows you that the 3 dots for Edge have to be different than the ones in Chrome. So rather than vertical, they're horizontal, but it's the same thing. And again, you see the menu pops up, you go to settings and then settings again. It looks like there is a question here. Are there copyright or privacy concerns associated with the use of something like that time-stamped transcript? I don't believe so, because basically what it is doing is pulling, in the case of Glasp, from that closed captions or transcripted material that is already available for you that you would have anyway. This just summarizes it and places it out there for the user instantaneously in a very, should I say, readable or accessible form. I hope that answers the question, but I don't think that there should be any issues with it since it's already coming from information that's been provided to the user. It's just very succinct, I think, and very quick. When we go to browser settings in Microsoft Edge, there are a few more that are important. Read aloud will read aloud the content on a page. We will see that this is something that is built in to the system. You can access this if you would like to by using Control, Shift, and U. So Control, Shift, and U and Edge will initiate the read aloud feature. In addition, there is Immersive Reader, and what this does is it removes the clutter from the page. So what you are looking at is something that students can focus on without a lot of those distractions. The voice settings with read aloud are somewhat limited. You can control the speed with which the voice reads, and you also can choose the accent. So what you will see is just a very comprehensive list of individuals speaking in English with different accents. And that really is all you can control regarding these voice settings with read aloud. But to be honest, these voices aren't exceptionally robotic, and I think they're very approachable. And the list is quite comprehensive, so individuals can choose from that. When we talk about this read addition, if you would like to add the immersive reader to a URL in Edge that doesn't already have it, or if you just want to trigger it again, you can type in read, the colon, and then the 2 forward slashes again in the URL, and then that will engage the immersive reader functionality on that page. This is what it will look like if you're looking at your sort of URL area. The first one here represents the read aloud feature, again, which you can engage with Control, Shift, and U. The one right beside it represents Immersive Reader. So you can see here, if we click forward, that the arrow will indicate that this is something that we can engage with. If we go ahead, this indicates the controls for the voice options. Again, not very many, but I think the voices are very, very realistic and not too robotic. So you can scroll speed and then choosing a voice. And then here is an instance of where we included that immersive reader by typing in READ colon and then the 2 forward slashes for a Wikipedia entry, and then that removes all the clutter. And once you get to that point, you will be able to alter the text size, the text color, the contrast. So Immersive Reader allows for you to choose highlight as you go and work with spacing. So those are elements embedded in both Chrome and Edge. If we go forward now, we have browser extensions. There is an extensive list for both Chrome and Edge. And we will see that, again, if you go into Chrome, it is that last entry at the bottom, which will take you directly to this page where they have collected all, or at least the majority of what they think are very beneficial accessibility extensions. We discussed those in some depth in your second handout with that second link right here, and that will give you a little bit more guidance. So if we go forward here and we look at the extensions, these are the ones that I like. Volume Master will increase, the volume for individuals if there is audio. Helper Bird is a very comprehensive tool that helps individuals with analyzing the page, a chat bot, really a lot of very diverse features. And you can see that there, what it says, it helps with reading, writing, accessibility. It provides advice on writing and responses, how to choose tone. And this again is something that you can embed if you choose the extension. Smart Mute, I think, is fascinating because what it does is it allows users to decide if when they go to a page, they hear the audio or it's automatically silenced. Or they also can choose for particular pages to constantly allow that audio. So if we have individuals that don't want to be too overwhelmed with too much coming at them, especially if they're not ready for it or they don't expect it on a page, you can use Smart Mute so it just silences everything. And then of course you can turn the audio on. And again, if there's a page that you really like and you know there's audio and you're okay with that, then you can allow that to always be something that's permitted. So that's really nice. And then Postlight Reader is another thing that removes that clutter. So with Smart Mute, we're removing the audio clutter. And with Postlight Reader, we're removing the visual clutter. If you use Copilot, you know that there is a lot of clutter there that can be very distracting and overwhelming to students. And with Postlight Reader, it just strips all that away. So basically all you see is the text that you are meant to read in a very straightforward environment without a lot of distractions. And these, I think, are very robust extensions. So you can choose one of those from Chrome if you would like. Now we will sort of switch gears here. Hopefully we've addressed something. If we haven't, we will. But what is your most pressing pain point regarding classroom accessibility? If anybody would like to share. I know that it can vary by class and certainly it varies by student. And the fact that we don't know the majority of our students with disabilities have them, I think that it really is a good idea to be as broad as possible in our supports. And that's what I'm trying to do here. As a complete side note, if that's all right, the icon that you see, even though it's a little bit pixelated, comes from a site called flaticon.com, which I strongly recommend if you would like to include some visuals that you can use copyright free as long as you attribute. It has colorful images they refer to as stickers, and it has a lot of infographic pieces as well that I really like to use, and some of them are animated. So something you might want to follow up on is flaticon.com. Okay, we'll go forward. Tina Mind, this doesn't have anything to do with content online, but it is a very, very robust AI support. It summarizes and reads aloud documents. So individuals can upload documents to Tina Mind, for example, Word documents or PDFs, and then you can engage with that content through its chat feature. And this is what it refers to as chat with docs, and it also can read those documents aloud. What is nice about this is if someone is writing something or has to respond to something, particularly like an email, email. It provides a lot of assistance. You can talk about the audience, you can talk about the tone, you can kind of select some different components for that to try and tailor the message. But for someone who might have difficulty sort of expressing themselves, this is a wonderful tool to use because of that additional extensive support with communication. Again, this doesn't have anything to do with, pardon me, hitting the microphone, doesn't have anything to do with the internet or anything, but it will pop up in that regard. But then individuals can interact with it through the screen on the side. So TinaMind is a really good, again, comprehensive AI tool to help with communication. And you can see this is what it looks like here, and it says you can click and drag your documents. The next one is Speechify. Speechify probably is really popular because of the quality of the AI voices that are produced. And there are a handful of actors or personalities that you can choose. Gwyneth Paltrow, for instance, if you'd like to use her voice. The quality of those voices is very, very strong. It reads text aloud. It also will read when you are using an AI generative tool and it's producing the output. It will also read that as it's produced. Now, some of these tools already will do that, but you have to wait until the prompt has been completed and then click on the microphone button so it reads it to you. In this particular case, it will read it as it is generated, which is really quite nice. It will also highlight text as it is being read. You can control the speed of this, and that's really nice. If you have individuals who have difficulty reading, this really helps them stay focused and concentrate on the words as they appear. And then again, what's nice about this is the flexibility in terms of options. You can change speed, you can change fonts, you can change narrators, so it's extremely customizable. It also allows you to highlight just a section of the page. So if there's something that is really challenging, you can highlight that and have Speechify work with that piece. And the screen capture here just shows you what the menu looks like. It's also not very intrusive. Some other menus are, and I like the subtlety of this. And you can see up there, you can click play. The little circle there indicates the narrator that you've chosen. And you can see that it also indicates for you the speed that's been chosen. Speechify is fantastic. The only caveat is when you add it as an extension, it kind of acts like you have to pay for it. Just click through that and don't pay for it, and then it still appears anyway. So the functionality just won't be as robust as if you paid, but you still get a lot for free. So I would recommend Speechify as well. Now we'll get into some AI enhanced platforms that are really quite fun, looking at Napkin, Goblin Tools, and a few others. Goblin Tools was specifically designed for ADHD students. Its primary goal is to break down difficult tasks so that an individual is not overwhelmed. This is also very customizable as well, which is a fantastic feature of this. You can assign your interpretation of the difficulty level of a task that you have to do. So for example, if you have to perform a group presentation, someone might be exceptionally intimidated by this. And so what they will do is they will indicate it's 4 out of 4 chili peppers. 1 chili pepper would be kind of easy, 4 is more complicated. And then what happens is the AI tool will break that task down into more manageable steps. So you're removing that sense of being overwhelmed, telling you from start to finish, this is how AI advises that you should be able to complete this. And if we go forward here, we'll see it also provides writing and communication support, just like we saw with TinaMind. I don't think that it's its primary focus. It certainly can help with that. If you want writing and communication support, I would probably go someplace else, but really use Goblin Tools for this idea of breaking down complex tasks. And we can see here, this is one of those checklists. So we have here 3 chili peppers. So I said that this is going to be very difficult for me. Talking to my advisor about course scheduling for next semester, I'm very intimidated. And you can see how it's created a list. If I don't think that this list is detailed enough, I can actually then click on each one of those components, and then it will actually break that down even further. So this is fantastic, again, for people who might feel overwhelmed or need some type of direction. And this is Goblin Tools. Napkin AI is wonderful for presenting information in a visual approach. What is nice about this tool is it's very, very easy to use. When you use Napkin, and again, it is another free tool, you can either enter the text in yourself, or you can have AI generated. And it is really just that straightforward. It's just like a notebook where you have text. Once you have that text, you highlight the text, and then the AI tool will create an infographic for you. You have options because you get a menu of how it looks, and then you also get a menu in terms of coloration, in terms of, opacity, things like that. It is fantastic. Once you have that infographic, you can actually edit it. You can change the text, you can change the smaller infographics, and you can share this and you can download it. I think it is fantastic. So this is Napkin AI. And if we go forward here, we will see an example of this. And the graphics, as we said, can be shared. This was me asking about what are the steps associated with photosynthesis. So this came from a menu of different options. I chose this particular one. Then we kind of drilled down a little bit more, and I chose the type of coloration and opacity. Had I wanted to, I could have changed the text. Had I wanted to, I could have changed those small icons as well. It really is wonderful for presenting complex ideas, very layered ideas, ideas with a lot of steps in a visual way that is polished and professional, that makes it more accessible to people. And so I would strongly recommend Napkin AI. Another platform that I would also recommend is Notebook LM. This is a platform brought to us by Google. It is a distraction-free workspace, again, which is fantastic for students who might feel overwhelmed, who need to have a calm environment, who need to focus. You can upload up to 20 different files of 500,000 words each, meaning you can create a 10 million word corpus. You can also summarize YouTube videos, again, if they have closed captions or a transcript. You can also upload URLs. They keep adding the types of content that you can add to this. And then once you put that in Notebook, then that is what the AI will interact with. This is fantastic for formative assessments because it has an entire section where it will generate frequently asked questions, timelines, key vocabulary words, short answer questions with their answers, essay questions. And really what might be most powerful in all of this is what is known as the audio overview. The audio overview will create a 2-person podcast, and you can see that in the far right-hand corner. You select what information you want the AI to work with from those files that you selected, and it will create a podcast, sort of like I always say like an NPR podcast. I think it is shocking how approachable, how realistic it sounds. It is a wonderful way to present information to someone in a way that is not just strictly text. This audio can be downloaded so you can share it with students through your LMS. If you upload this file, once it's been downloaded, it will create a transcript. So now we have made it even more accessible. But it really is something amazing. You also can interact with this in terms of you can ask the podcast questions. That's a new feature recently. So this is something that you could create and share with students. This is also something that students could create on their own. The other benefit you might be interested in knowing about is that this tool does not train on user interactions. So anything that you do with the model is not being trained. So it is keeping it private. And that might be something in terms of ethics that's a concern for some. So Notebook LM, I think, is another very powerful tool. One that I just recently came across is Recap. Recap will create visual summaries of information that is uploaded to it. So it has an extension if you would like it to recap information online. I haven't worked with that one as much, but the standard Recap, if you look at that one, go to the website, pardon me, as opposed to the extension, will allow you to upload content. And then what it does is it creates 3 agents. So 3 virtual agents with different personalities, different characters, different perspectives, and it assigns those to the content. And then what you do is you select which agent you would like to use. And then from that, you can create what they refer to as the best. So you let the system automatically decide what the best visual summary is, or you can choose specifically a mind map, a timeline, or a table, and then it creates this visual component that summarizes your content, which I think is fantastic. It's free. If you pay for the more advanced version, you can actually edit, I think, these visuals a little bit. In the free version, you can't, and you can download this once they're done. So this is an example of that, where you have this visual breaking this down. It's not as refined or as maybe polished and professional as we see with Napkin, but it really can do a good job when it breaks things down into tables and provide mind maps, which notebook doesn't do or napkin doesn't do as well. So this might be another approach to that, especially since you get these different options in terms of agent perspectives. Because it's free, you only get 3 of these visuals per day. But again, that can add up over time if you go back and you return and you return. So I think that that's another positive. But that is recap. And then here's an example of a table, a little bit more text-based, but you can see that it broke things down into different categories. And this is certainly another wonderful formative assessment tool, or a wonderful way for students to approach material for the first time as a sort of starting off point. When we look at what we're already familiar with, generative AI platforms, we have Gemini, Claude, Copilot, and ChatGPT. I said in my little intro video that it's exciting we don't have to focus just on ChatGPT, which is actually true. If we look at Google Gemini, it has a voice-to-text component. So if you click on the microphone, you can actually speak to it, even if you are just using your computer and you are not using your mobile device. So I think that this is fantastic. Once you have triggered that, once the prompt has been generated, you can then click and have that read aloud to you. Unlike we said with live captions that will actually read it in real time, you do have to wait for the prompt to be produced before you can click on that to hear it, but you still can hear it. Gemini, what should we say? Gemini's claim to fame in part is that it's exceptional with computer vision, meaning that it does a very good job analyzing images. So I believe when we first started this, we sort of talked about, or it was referenced, this idea of using a generative AI for alt text, so that if you have assistive readers, they will know how to describe an image more accurately. I would say use Google Gemini for this because it does have these features, as I said, that are a little bit more advanced in terms of interpreting what an image is. And all you simply have to say is, once you upload the image, I would like to provide alt text for this image. How could you summarize it best for assistive technology in 1 to 2 sentences? And it typically does a very good job with that. It also has response modification. So you will see that you will get a primary prompt response and then 3 others. So if a student or someone would like something with a different type of tone or maybe a different type of approach, they can look at those different responses and have some options there. And then finally, in terms of transparency, what is very exciting about this tool is that you can actually share your engagement with the AI very, very easily. Once the prompt has been generated, there's a little icon at the bottom that looks sort of like a molecule. And if you click on that, then you can share. That way the student can share, what the prompt was, what the response was, if they need help or follow up on that, if they need clarification, if the instructor just wants to see what's going on. It's very, very easy. So it reduces a barrier so students don't feel a burden of having to do a screen capture, copy and paste. You can simply engage with the model as you see fit and then click on that and then share it with someone if that's a course policy. So that is Google Gemini. And you can see here on the far right-hand side, the little microphone icon. Click on that to speak. So you have speech to text. And then the other image there allows you to upload a photograph. So that's Google Gemini. If we continue, we have Microsoft Copilot. It has voice to text features as well. Just click on the microphone. Read aloud responses will be triggered by that as well. So that's wonderful. You can upload images for alt text here as well. I still think Gemini is probably better for that, but this does allow that feature. So if you want to use that, that's fine. AI changes all the time. It had a screenshot feature, which I thought was outstanding, and they just got rid of it. So unfortunately, we can't do that. You used to be able to screen capture part of it and then focus on that alone. They removed that. I'm not sure why. So that's too bad. But it shows you how quickly AI can change, because that's just disappeared in the past couple of weeks. You also can share your engagement as well, just like we could with Gemini. Once the prompt is generated, you click at the end share. You can share it through email. And that, again, reduces barriers and promotes transparency. So Copilot, really quite similar. And then you can see here, they've already updated this since I worked on this PowerPoint. It doesn't have the screen capture feature anymore, but it does still, have the microphone, and it does have that image upload. So that's quite exciting. So very nice. Okay, with Anthropic's Claude, you don't have a lot of options, but you actually can choose to change the font to a dyslexic-friendly font. That's really the only option you have, but you can do that as well, so that's good to know. It is advanced in terms of its image reading as well. It can actually I say interpret, but it can transcribe handwriting, which I think is a strength to this. Gemini claims it can do the same. It's put out that claim in the past month or so. I haven't tested that, but I can say that if you use Claude, it can transcribe handwriting. If individuals have difficulty processing visuals, charts and graphs, a little too overwhelming, or they don't know where to start, you can actually upload charts and graphs to Claude and ask Claude to interpret them. Gemini has also sort of jumped on board with this in the past month or so and claims it can do the same thing. So this is a wonderful outlet if someone can't really see something or interpret it. The screenshot that was just shared right there, these were 3 handwritten recipes that I asked our culinary arts program to share, and we were able to get transcriptions for this, and they were almost perfect. Some of the writing was a little difficult to interpret, which is understandable, but I'd say about 90% or 95% of what was written, Claude was able to transcribe. And this really can open up a lot of doors for people who might need some help with transcription, or if they borrow someone else's notes, or if they can't do a lot of writing themselves. Really quite a game changer, I think. And again, Claude does very well with that. Claude also does very well, I think, with producing writing that seems a little bit more fluent or fluid and a little less robotic. And it has something known as an artifacts window, so you can actually ask it to produce some things. If you maybe want to produce some code or some sort of document, it'll pop up on the right-hand side and you have a nice sample of that. And particularly works well with code, but also can produce some documents and some visual charts as well. So if a student is having difficulty sort of processing or working with, just sort of the visual of the data, they can ask Claude to produce an interactive chart or graph, and interactive in the sense that it's interactive in the browser. Unfortunately, you can't download it in that way. But for a student who's working with material and really maybe needs it to be maybe clarified in some way or stripped of some of the overwhelming material so you can maybe process it one layer at a time, this would be fantastic. So that's what I would recommend for that. That is Claude. And then again, that screen capture the transcription. So that's kind of the highlight of what we have here. In the packet, we have a few more tools that I didn't talk about, but it goes into a little background of each one. Again, all supporting the idea of accessibility. And then that is also reflected in the spreadsheet, which broke it down according to student need. So those are our documents here. I thank you for your time, and looks like we've got some time for questions if there are any. I see a comment from Pamela about great tools for creating a podcast. If you want students to work together, if you would like them to have a space, or even if it's not maybe a formal group, but you would like them to interact and maybe have students help each other processing material, I would recommend Perplexity Spaces. Perplexity has a collaboration area that they're now labeling as spaces. The individual who creates the space, so you probably have one student do this, can upload content, and then you can have other members of the group or the team engage in that space, and they can interact with the AI, and they can interact with those documents in the AI. Because it's free, you only can upload 5 documents, and maybe you don't need documents. Maybe it's just some sort of conversation with the AI. But Perplexity Spaces is another tool that might be good for group work and support.
It looks like there's quite a bit in the chat.
Okay.
If you want to go through them.
Okay. People like Speechify. That's awesome. Oh, and Goblin. That's a great tool. A question about assisting with chemistry. This might not answer the question regarding chemistry, but Claude does very well. Again, I'm sorry if this doesn't help. Again, looking at charts and graphs and problems. So if there were something regarding, I would say, like a chemical process or something like that, I would probably go to Claude first. I'm sorry, I'm not well versed enough in science to be able to help. But with those types of complex visuals, I think I would go with Claude. You might want to try Gemini too, if you can get it as an image and see if it can work with that. I'm sorry, that's not very good. Regarding, just to follow up on that, because I see the second question about chemistry and math questions. What has come out in the past couple of months are reasoning models. The reasoning models are using something called chain of thought. And what that means is they're going to take longer to process a user's prompt. And the chain of thought is they're going to come up with an answer, and then they're going to use that to come up with another answer, and then come up with another answer, and just sort of think through a problem sort of along the lines the way a human would do, even though it's not exactly on par with that. But it's going to be a process of kind of thinking, and then producing a response, with the idea being that this slower process allows the model to work with more complex problems. So regarding chemistry and math, and this would be a wonderful use case, Copilot has a think deeper feature. It is now available to everyone, even if you're not paying. So you do not have to have a Microsoft account for this. You could enter your prompt and then click on that think deeper. If you go to Gemini, they have Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking. You can access that for a little bit of time, again, free. That's one of those sort of thinking or reasoning models. So in terms of the chemistry and math support, I would say look for a model that addresses that sort of reasoning or thinking component, and use those tools. In Perplexity, I think you can access some of their deeper thinking for free as well. But I certainly know in Copilot now, they just released that a couple weeks ago and made that uniformly free for everyone. And that might help with those more complex problems.
I see one here about, are there copyright privacy concerns associated with the use of something like the timestamped transcript? I'm thinking about using lecture videos that are contained within Canvas but not available freely online.
I would think if it's kept in the context of your classroom, I think that would be okay, because you're already accessing that material, and what you're basically just having the technology do is just capture that as a transcript. So you're not altering the content in any way, and you're already having access to that content. I would think that if you maintain it in your LMS, I think that would be just fine, because you're already working with something that you have access to, and you're not sharing that beyond the classroom. So I think that that would be okay. I hope you like that tool. It's very crisp. I've seen very horrible timestamps before, where it's like minute 1, minute 10, minute 20. That doesn't help anyone. This really does quite well with that. So I hope you like that.
Some others, and maybe you already mentioned these. Oh, where did it go? Hold on, I just saw it. What is the effect on executive decision making in exploring research?
That's a really good question, because, again, I keep saying in the past couple of months, there's been a lot of activity. In the past couple of months, we have seen a couple of research tools come out. One in ChatGPT. I don't have access to that one because I don't have a paid account. But there is another one that you might be interested in. It's called Storm. It's from Stanford University, and its focus is research here. I think what we can see, I guess, unfortunately, to be honest, is if you use Storm, for instance, it's an agentic model. It will do research on whatever topic you give it. It will produce your paper. It'll produce sources. It does it through agents. So it uses 3 sort of different perspectives to do it. Clearly, that kind of undercuts the effort that we would typically, associate with the research paper of coming up with, a thesis statement and searching for the sources, et cetera. So I think it does create some issues in terms of the process. What students need to know, what we all need to know still, even with these models, is they're still not 100% accurate. All of them will hallucinate to one degree or another, because they're stochastic and they have a bit of randomness built into them regardless. A couple of weeks ago, I actually was using one of these deeper thinking approaches, and it came up with 5 or 6 sources, and I couldn't find 2 of them. So I actually contacted our research librarian at the school and asked for help, and these sources didn't exist. So, I mean, it's a lot that faculty have to deal with because it really can undercut the process, which is exceptionally valuable, of organizing your thoughts and clarifying and refining and determining different things and prioritizing, if that's sort of what you're getting at with that question. Students need to know that there is value in that process. This might be a little bit of an aside, but last week I was giving a presentation on soft AI skills, which I argue are these skills that we develop through the liberal arts, which would speak to this idea of research that are still exceptionally critical, because you need to know something to be able to evaluate what AI is doing. So particularly in terms of research, if it gives you information that isn't accurate, you kind of need to know that. So I think when you're talking about sort of executive decision making, if I'm interpreting this correctly, the idea of these skill sets and these approaches that we want students to take, those are still exceptionally valuable, even in the context of AI. It can produce something at scale and at speed, but the quality still isn't going to be there, and individuals still need to have oversight and evaluate that content to make sure that it is accurate. Because, for example, even with translation, Google Translate's wonderful, but when I'm working with that, it still will make errors. It has difficulty, interpreting context. It can't interpret emotion and things like that. So it can do a lot for us very quickly, which kind of undercuts what maybe we want the students to go through. But students need to understand the process is still valuable, and that the material that's produced by AI still isn't, perfect. I hope I didn't ramble too much on that one, and that I might have at least hit part of the mark on that one for you, Gregory. Yay. It's a good question. Those tools are really powerful. But again, Storm from Stanford might be something you want to explore in that context. It does a very good job, at least in providing citations for where the content came from. Then we'll have to kind of evaluate to see if that's okay. And it provides an interactive outline of what it produces as well. So it certainly could be a tool for students to help them maybe to start with something. Another one in terms of starting, and pardon me, I'm just rambling here, but Google Learnabout. Google Learnabout is sort of this multifaceted approach to presenting information. So if you type in your query into Google Learnabout, you're going to get, YouTube video recommendations, image recommendations, recommendations for websites and things like that, offshoots of what might be interesting. I think that's fantastic for showing students the complexity of things, but also if students are having some problem becoming engaged or knowing where to start, it throws so much at them in so many different ways. Something might be there that students can kind of latch on and follow up with because they're interested. So that's Google Learnabout.
Folks are wondering where they can access the slide deck after this.
I uploaded it to the Rutgers official site, but I can place it somewhere else, or I can share it with people who are interested. Whatever's the best approach you think, Kate.
I will, if you can email it to me, and then I can get it out. Yes.
Perfect. That's what I will do. Yeah, I'll email it to Kate when we're done. How to get a crash course for students. So I'm looking at Jacqueline's question. I have and I can send this to Kate as well. I have another, so I love spreadsheets apparently. I have another spreadsheet, and it's called the AI tool for the task. In the context here, and this might be the same at your institutions, students know about AI, but they know about AI in the context of ChatGPT alone. So I do have another spreadsheet that I can send to Kate. And what it does is it breaks down the major large language models that we can access online. So Claude, Gemini, Leo, Latimer, U, etc. And it breaks it down according to what they can do. So are they connected to the internet? What types of files can you upload to them? Because, for example, not all of them will accept Word documents. Does it do well with translation? Does it share the chat? The size of its context window? That might be a good place to start, because that way students can see that there are a breadth of tools. And I have been to a handful of webinars, and this is just my position, where you see individuals arguing that students need to have paid accounts in order to really reap the benefits of AI. And I don't agree with that at all, especially in light of the fact there's so many tools out there, and the fact that even if you don't pay for it, you can access it every day. So for example, with Claude, if there's high usage, they have 3 models in Claude. They've got Haiku, which is the small one. Then they've got Sonnet, which is sort of the middle of the road. Then they have Opus, which is the higher end. If you don't have a free account, you get to use the middle of the road, very robust model, which is that the one in the middle, the Sonnet one, 3.7. If there are high usage levels on the website and you have a free account, they're going to push you down to Haiku. It's still a great model, but you can use it and then you can come back the next day and hopefully get into it when it's not as busy. But even if it's not busy, you can interact with that for a certain number of set turns, and then it kicks you out, but it says then you come back at 8 o'clock. So that's one thing I can also share that might be a good starting point for students. And then the other thing that we just try to say is it's impressive, it is fast, but it is not accurate. So we kind of tend to think it might be simply because we type in something and it's always confident and it doesn't tell us that it's wrong. That's just the way it's kind of programmed. But to understand that we still need to have oversight, that it hallucinates, and that users still need to really kind of be in the driver's seat might be a great way to kind of frame it for students.
All right, so it is 10:50, so the session is technically officially over. You, Dr. Yost, are welcome to stay in here and chat if you would like, but the next session starts in 10 minutes. So thank you so much for your presentation. It was awesome. I think I speak for everyone when we say we learned a lot. And yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Kate, for your help, and Rutgers for letting me do this. And thank you, everyone, for attending. And I'll stay a few minutes if there are any questions. Otherwise, please enjoy the rest of the symposium and the conference. I subscribe to a lot of AI newsletters, and oftentimes at the end of those newsletters, Ben's Bites, that's the only one I can really recall offhand, they'll have a list of tools at the bottom. Oftentimes they don't really apply because it's going to be oriented towards business or something, but oftentimes they do recommend a tool that I can kind of follow up on. So that's how I get some leads. And then if anyone ever mentions something, I try and follow up on that too. But if you just do some sort of search for, AI newsletters or something. That should be a good way. I'm sorry, I can't think of any of the titles. They just kind of come to me by default. I will let everyone go. Thank you very much for attending this morning. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Again, it's just laura.yost@kirkwood.edu, and enjoy the conference.